Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard, and in this live stream I want to just simply explore this interesting new concept that I've come across. It's not new to anybody else, but it's new to me. How we may be either experiencing or have access to a solar wave wormhole, which we can traverse, or maybe not. How does this thing work? Which will help us shift up to higher dimensions, if you believe in such things. And we'll continue to look at this very bizarre question of, is the Earth splitting into two? One lower 3D Earth and a higher vibrational Earth, which we call 5D. These are the things that I want to look at. So just to get updated on some news going on at the moment, there's a lot of stuff going on astrologically. So be prepared starting from today going forward for the next week or two. For some people, there might be a lot of emotional shifts. You might find yourself feeling cranky or emotional or frustrated. And we are having more solar storms are hitting the Earth. There's some more coronal mass ejections and some solar wind and plasma, which is heading our way. Not necessarily as big as some of the ones last month, but still steady stream of pretty serious solar waves hitting us. I myself am feeling it. And so I want to talk again about some ascension symptoms that you might be having. I know I am. So as you know from watching my videos about interdimensional meditation, I just uploaded, by the way, a guided interdimensional meditation course, which I recommend. This is more of a new technique that I'm learning, and so I really enjoyed it. But you know, it still doesn't change for me when I go into higher dimensional realms. When I come back into my body, maybe a few hours later or the next day, I may find myself feeling doubtful, emotional, insecure, things like that will pop up. And you know, it's still my experience. It doesn't change just because I intellectually know this is what's going to happen. It doesn't change my, immediate emotional experience, but it's still my experience that, the more time that I spend in higher dimensions in meditation, the more I end up dying to this three-dimensional realm. And that's not easy for me. So, look, I can't get into everybody's head. So I don't know where everybody has come from. As I've said before, it is my experience that a lot of starseeds and light workers, as they like to be called, tend to conflate their emotional trauma with ascension symptoms. And sometimes they're both the same thing. It is my experience that the people who are most, and this isn't a blanket statement on anybody listening, I'm just generally speaking, it is my experience, right or wrong, that most people who have difficulty connecting to these higher dimensions are more guarded. They have more emotional armor. Now, again, it is not my intention to make a blanket statement about anybody, because I don't know. And I'm trying to stay away from that altogether. I'm working to have no judgment on anybody regardless of who they are, regardless of where they are. I don't care if it's President Biden, George Bush, Donald Trump, or if it's, you know, the most enlightened, you know, artistic, spiritual person you might want to bring to mind. I'm not seeking to make any judgments about that. I still believe that everybody can make this shift. I believe that everybody can do it, regardless of how messed up they are. They could have severe psychological, emotional, mental issues, but the only thing that matters is the willingness to be honest and grow. And that is the key, the willingness to be honest with oneself and be willing to grow in an uncomfortable way. And, you know, I was thinking about this today, and without mentioning any names, you know, these are celebrities. I'm thinking of people who seemed to have really been sucked down into the mainstream narrative, and who I think probably I would, you know, if I were to make a human judgment, they might not be as close to this shift as perhaps other people are. And I'm wondering, you know, how can that happen, being that these people, I believe, are conscious and aware. What is it that pulls them back? And it's simply the choice, the conscious choice to seek comfort in the narrative. When I use the narrative, I'm using that in a big way, but it is symbolic of our desire to be loved and accepted. So the shift, my experience, is the shift into higher dimensions is challenging, because in order to gain that love, to gain the love and acceptance of higher dimensional consciousness, and seek to be part of that club, if you will, I have to be willing to die to a lot of comfort that I take. Familiarity is probably a better word. The familiarity that I have in the third dimension. You know, listen, I've been around a while, so I'm not. You know, I was not at all hip to all this stuff that was going on 20 years ago. There were people right after 9/11 that started waking up to the reality of this world. I didn't. In fact, I still have. If you go back far enough on my channel, you will still find videos of me, unless I've deleted them. I don't think I have. Videos of me explaining how 9/11 was not a hoax, and I go into great detail talking about, you know, why people that are believing it's a hoax have some kind of, you know, unresolved emotional issues. I don't believe that now. I mean, I'm as far in the other direction, I believe, as somebody can go. Almost. There's some people that believe stuff that I still don't buy into. And that is based on my personal experience. But anyway, I digress. So I'm feeling it now as I'm talking to you. I'm feeling a lot of higher dimensional energy. And in fact, if you can see me, I'm like holding on to the table here. It gives me a feeling of insecurity. I feel insecure. I feel anxious. And at the same time, if I sit here and I do the Hool breath, then the higher dimensional energy increases. And even though the anxiety is still there, there's this bliss that comes over me. So it's sort of, forgive me for this weak analogy, but it's like an orgasm. You know, the first time that somebody has an orgasm, lots of times they think something's wrong with them. You know, do you remember your first one? Oh my God, what's happening to me? Because you're completely losing control, and this intense, blissful feeling, your nervous system overcomes you. You never felt anything like that before. That's what this is like. It's like a spiritual orgasmic experience, and to really experience it, you have to let go. You have to go into the unknown. That's why they call an orgasm the little death. That's why they call it that, because you lose control, and it's frightening. First, at least, maybe the first time. There are some people that really don't have a problem with this, just flow with it, perhaps, out there. Well, I'm not one of those people. So whatever issues I'm going through, if you're going through them as well, know that you're not alone. For whatever reasons, the higher dimensional beings have chosen me. I'm sure they've chosen a lot of people, but they've chosen me to give out this information and to have these experiences. And, I would imagine there are other people who would be more easily open to the experiences than I am, who maybe aren't as intellectual as I am about it, or guarded, emotionally guarded as I am. So maybe that's a good thing. They said, let's show everybody, let's get this guy, he's a tough nut to crack. This guy's really well defended. Let's crack him open and give him a taste so that he can help other people perhaps who are also guarded. So before I get into this talk, which I am going to get into about this very interesting solar wave wormhole, I just want people to know that, the longer that I'm doing this, I'm aware that people have different experiences. There are some people that are doing the interdimensional meditation in CE5, and their perception is that they're not having experiences. I'm using very specific words here. In fact, as I'm talking to you, I'm getting flooded with energy. So it's an experience, but we do have some control. This was way back, almost a year ago, but one of the things that happened during those first 3 months where I was really getting bombarded with downloads and visitations and information, they came to me and they said, bear in mind, my human brain is taking these telepathic messages from a higher dimension and trying to interpret it in my 3D English language. So sometimes my brain doesn't translate the message very well. So they said, we're coming for you. And I was like, what? What does that mean? You're coming for me? We're coming for you. And then they said, the feeling that I got was, we're going to bring the solar wave with us. We're coming for you. And then they said, you're the first. We're taking you first. I didn't know what that meant. I thought a spaceship was going to come down in my front yard, and I was going to go in there with my duffel bag, and they were going to take me somewhere. I mean, I was prepared for that. But, of course, I didn't quite understand. Now I understand what they meant. What they meant was, and this became clear to me the next day as I'm sitting, looking around for spaceships to land. I was literally looking around for spaceships to land in my front yard. The energy started hitting me more and more and more, and I became aware that what they were saying was, we're going to take you to 5D Earth first. Now, they don't use the word 5D, by the way. I've never heard them use that. But that's what they meant, what we call 5D Earth. I said, we're going to take you first. And sure enough, that day, the energy started building like it is in me right now, started building and building and building until I was in a completely different headspace. I thought, I felt as though I had just, ate a handful of mushrooms, drank ayahuasca, something. The Kundalini and the DMT that was flowing through my brain and my body was at a level I can't remember ever experiencing. And everything was brighter, everything sparkled, everything had life to it. I could sense the life in the earth beneath me. I could put my energy into the earth. I could connect to the clouds. I could feel like the ocean, the fish in the ocean. I'm walking along the beach. This is when I was in Florida, and I can feel people's energy, and I'm in, I love everybody. They're my family. I can feel them. The animals are, deeper, more conscious beings than I've ever realized. And I became aware that I could tune the frequency. That if I really just sank into the joy and connected to the feelings of love and unity, that the feelings would increase and increase to whatever I was willing to tolerate. And I could also, if I chose to start focusing on something, whether it was my shopping list at the grocery store, or I have to pay taxes or whatever it is, then I could turn the volume down and I could bring myself further and further back down. And then I decided that I didn't want to do that. That I didn't know how long this was going to last, so I did my best to open myself up. The feeling is I probably could have gone even deeper with it. I don't know. But that lasted for a good day. And I guess the reason why I'm telling you this is because this has to do with this idea of a wormhole. Was I experiencing this 3D, 5D wormhole? And what does that mean? When you look back at this picture here, this idea, this has been a vision that people have had. I myself have not had this vision, but people have had this vision, just like these two earths, sort of like a cell splitting down the middle and breaking off. And I want to be clear about this, because if you're like me, this is just really hard to accept. The feeling I'm having now, the intense amount of energy that I'm feeling now, blissful energy. Again, if I do that, I just go into this really trippy, I feel really stoned right now. Blissfully happy, relaxed. And I've learned that I can do that. I can just relax into the energy, and the anxiety starts to shift into a high level, sort of orgasmic, really stony feeling. So what does that have to do with this? It's easy for me to just say, oh yeah, so yeah, man, like my vibe is like vibing up, whatever. And yeah, man, I'm in 5D right now. Oh, dude, you're in 3D, man. You need to just mellow out and have a hit of this 5D chronic, man. It'd be very easy for me to go into that, because then that's sort of explaining it. Like, oh, it's just your state of mind, your vibe. And yeah, I'm on a different vibe than you. But this is actually, perhaps a literal thing. This is how I'm understanding the way it's being communicated. Is that this is a literal thing. That there's literally going to be a new higher dimensional Earth that's more sparkly and doesn't have, that won't eventually have banks and governments and armies and, big pharma and all that stuff. And there will be another actual physical Earth that will have all of that garbage, and it will get worse. And the energy will move down. I do remember in that state that colors were more vibrant. And people have said that, some of the visions that the lower 3D Earth actually starts to turn more of a grayscale. I would buy that simply because that was my experience. It could just be that in the lower 3D, people don't have as much DMT flowing through their system. I think DMT has a lot to do with people's perception of colors and vibrant. I think that has a lot to do with it. Anyway, so I'm just talking out loud here because I just want you to know. I don't know why I need you to know this, but I just want you to know that I'm not buying into any of this stuff because I'm just some, new age escapee who's, wanting to buy into whatever makes me escape my trauma. It's not what I'm doing. I have a lot of resistance to this stuff. I've had resistance to this whole thing from the beginning. This has not been an easy concept at all. And again, I think that's part of the reason perhaps why I've been chosen, is so that I would be, and I'm getting a hit that's why, that I would be practical about it, and that I wouldn't jump to any truth more than anything else. I've always been that way. I will abandon things that I feel comfortable with in favor of the truth. I will always do that. That is something I've always wanted to do. I'm seeing that there's a slow connection here. I hope you guys can still hear me. Let me know if you can still hear me. Yeah, one of the things I do, there's not a clear, steady picture here, so one of the things I do sometimes is I just put up the picture so that you can hear me talk and enjoy the picture. I also have to acknowledge another aspect of me, which is that this is everything I've ever wanted. If I'm honest with myself, this is everything I've ever wanted. All of the peace, all of the joy, all of the magic. You'd think by the way I'm describing myself that I, would have completely not been a spiritually minded person. But I've been involved with the highest level of occult, and I don't mean occult in the sense of some, new age Western magician who sits around and puts on a pointy cap and thinks he's doing some kind of black magic. I'm talking about proven energy practices from India and from China that are the most powerful occult practices known to humankind, which of course I teach here, the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. That stuff is real, and I've had so many powerful experiences, but I was never forced into the concept that there might be another, dimension right above us, or that the world could literally split into two. I wasn't forced into that. So I could have all of these out-of-body experiences and do things that were, that were beyond, scientific explanation. I could still sort of pack it into a 3D scientific understanding and say, it's a little bit out of our understanding, but, But this kind of stuff we're talking about, that there are going to be two Earths. I mean, I don't want to skim over it and not give it the weight that is due it. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal. And I guess if I'm honest, and maybe this is the resistance, because what I've come to find out is that the biggest resistance to, if you want to have an experience with higher dimensional beings and you're doing interdimensional meditation and you think nothing's happening, I want to encourage you to listen to what I'm about to tell you, which is that the biggest hurdle, in fact, the single reason that people will be left behind in a lower vibrational Earth is simply because they won't take the risk of allowing themselves to be fully loved and fully seen. That's it. You can boil it down to that. This is what people have, narcissistic personality disorder, people who are abusive, psychopaths, We are talking about people who are so incapable of being loved that in order to survive, they do the opposite. This is what mental illness is. It all comes down to self-hatred. And self-hatred is nothing more than the fear of being vulnerable. And why are we afraid of being vulnerable? It's fear of rejection. Little babies do this. The babies that grow up to be psychopaths are babies who were either neglected or outrightly abused, and their intense need for love wasn't met. And so in order to tolerate the intolerable feeling of absolutely feeling like you're going to die if somebody doesn't pick you up and hug you, and knowing that nobody's going to pick you up and hug you, is enough to kill you, by the way. This kills infants. I'm dead serious about that. Infants will die from lack of love before they die of lack of food and shelter. This has been proven over and over again throughout time. And so when an infant who survives that, what they do is they protect themselves by doing what little kids do in elementary school and in junior high school. You that's why you give somebody a note. I like you. Do you like me? Check the box yes or no. I mean, little kids do that because they can't tolerate the thought of being rejected. So when you've been rejected and the awareness of that, if that infant were to fully accept the idea that they were rejected, it would kill them. So in order to survive that, they decide they're going to reject you first. It's what happens all the time. People do this all the time. I mean, adults do this. They start to really like somebody, and then what they do is they find something wrong with them so that, they can break up with them, or, and it's a fear of being loved. It's a fear of being rejected. And that's what it all comes down to. So if you want to have a greater experience on an interdimensional meditation course, if you want to have the ETs arrive when you do the vectoring meditation and you want them to come, you have to be willing to take the risk of, number one, being loved and seen on the deepest level, and the risk that if you make yourself that vulnerable, the risk is you might be rejected. If you're not willing or not able to face that fear, that is what's going to block you from experiencing them. On the extreme level, that is what's going to force people to go down into a lower 3D. It will be their conscious choice. They, just like narcissists, borderlines are a perfect example. People with borderline personality disorder, perfect example. People with BPD, if they're not in treatment, what ends up happening is that they fall in love with you. They make you feel as though that they will love you and they want to experience you on the deepest level. And then you start to open up and love them on a very deep level. And when they feel real, deep, intimate love, it reminds them when they were an infant on an unconscious level of the fear of being rejected, and they immediately, in their brain, they go crazy and they think you're out to kill them, and they destroy the relationship, sometimes in very hostile, destructive ways. And that's the extreme, but human beings, it's on a scale. People do it all the time. This is the majority of relationships that don't work, is that the relationship is getting to a point where the intimacy, really being seen, is going to go on a deeper level, and people can't tolerate that. So the next thing you know, it's like, I can't stand the way you look. I can't stand, you fart in bed, and you eat crackers in bed, and I can't live with somebody who does that, and you don't put the toilet roll on the right thing, or you go out and you cheat on somebody, or you get addicted to porn and whatever. Those are all actions that people do when they're afraid of being completely loved. It's the fear of being rejected. And ironically, they end up rejecting the people that they're afraid of being rejected by. And this is all that this is. I can feel the energy. They like what I'm saying. But it's definitely been my experience. If you watch my video, if you haven't watched it yet, go back on my channel and search for, by the way, please learn how to search for videos within somebody's channel, not through YouTube, but within their channel. Please Google how to search keywords within a YouTube channel. Go onto my channel and look for the video called When I Became an Extraterrestrial. And in that video, I explained to you that process, because at one point, what happened was that I made the connection. I didn't realize that I had made the connection, but I had made the connection, and I was looking around, wondering what was going on. I was, I had my walkie-talkie, and I was blasting tones in it, thinking I needed to let them know where I was, so they could, look around on their scope, like, Mr. Spock, and oh, there he is. And as I'm doing that, my walkie-talkie goes off, which is impossible for it to do, which means they're saying, "We hear you, we're here." And I got really frightened. And then I started feeling the first feeling I had, because the energy started, like the feeling I'm having now, the room that I was in started filling with this kind of energy. And the first emotion I had was, I'm not worthy of this. And I said it out loud, under my breath. I said, I feel like I'm not worthy. Can you please let me know that I'm worthy of this? And the radio goes off. And then I'm stifling back the tears. And so even though in my brain the fear was, I am flipping out because this is impossible. There's a being outside of my third dimensional understanding that is interacting with my technology and has a finger on my crown chakra, and my brain was flipping out. How could there be, because I could see in my mind he was a giant mantis being. He was like 7 foot tall mantis being, and that's pretty freaky in and of itself. But just the impossibility of it is what gave me conscious fear. But the real fear was that I was in the presence of somebody who was fearlessly and unconditionally loving me and accepting me on a vibrational level that I had never felt. And that's where the real fear came in. The fear of being loved and seen. I stuck with it. You can hear me on the video, you can hear me saying, I'm afraid. But there was nothing going on that was causing me to be afraid. I was just afraid of being seen and loved by something I couldn't understand. And higher dimensional energy had a big part to do with that. So, how do we go through this wormhole? I've just explained it. This wormhole, if it exists, because some people believe that there will be a wormhole where people can go from 5D to 3D, and those on 3D, if they choose to switch up, they can switch up and shift up through the wormhole. That's what some people believe. I honestly don't know. But I will tell you what I can't say I know this. I will tell you what I believe based on what my ET friends have told me. So she's on here right now, I think. Thundra. She was talking to me about, she believes that it's going to be this shift of 3D, 5D. And I was listening to that. And so after we were talking, she's one of my apprentices, after we got off the phone, I thought about it, and I've come to accept that absolutely anything is possible. Absolutely anything. So there's nothing anybody can say now where I will say that's just not possible, because anything literally is possible in this universe. There's nothing that cannot happen. It might be challenging, it might be highly improbable, but there's nothing that can't happen. I know that now. And so I don't have any the only thing that can't happen, let me be clear, there is one thing that cannot happen, scientifically cannot happen, and that is a higher dimensional being cannot have any predatory feelings or take any destructive predatory action towards you. It's impossible. That's why 3D is going to be lower than 5D, because that's where all the narcissists, the psychopaths are going to be. They're going to be down there because they want to still be able to act out they avoid feeling the horror of being completely loved. That's how they avoid that, is through their narcissistic actions, their destructive actions. So that's the one thing that can't happen, and that's why aliens who abduct are not from higher dimensions. They are from Earth. They are humans, either in suits or they're androids, or they are pictures that are being piped into your head through their technology that they use to mess with people's heads. Anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought. Man, this is really good stuff, man. Yeah, I'm very stoned right now. On energy, nothing else, just to be clear. So I'm not, this isn't something that's easy for me to accept. It's not easy for me to accept on a bunch of other levels. But I know I'm choosing to believe that this is the case because they made it clear to me that it was. And what Thundra talked to me about was that, I don't know, I can't remember the context of it, but that it was like, playing a piano and going up the scale on a piano. That you hit the strings of the piano and they vibrate at a frequency, and we're vibrating at a frequency. And so each time we get hit with a solar wave, we are getting hit with one right now, the vibration goes up. The frequency goes up. And then it stays there. And then we get hit with another one, and it goes up again, and it goes up again, and it goes up again, and it goes up again. And I guess eventually at some point there's gonna be a crescendo where it just goes up and stays up there. So I was meditating on that, and I thought, that's interesting. I don't know if it's true or not. And then that night, my ET friends showed up, and I heard very distinctly. It was not, it wasn't my mind. I always have music in my head, always, 24/7. It wasn't in my mind. It wasn't the music playing in my head. It wasn't, a telepathic message that came to me and then my brain heard it a certain way. That's one way they communicate. That's the majority of the time, that's how they communicate. But as I was in bed and I was waking up, and in that state where you turn back over and you're going to go back to sleep, I very clearly heard in my mind, but it was very clear, somebody playing the scales of a piano. And I went, oh, that's very interesting. That once isn't enough to convince me. That could have been me making it up. I don't know, even though that was a very clear sign. And then a couple hours later, I wake up and the exact same thing happened. And I said, okay, I hear you. That those people who have seen this vision, those people who have seen this vision and have been given different analogies, the vibration on the piano is one analogy. There are other analogies, like a string being stretched and stretched and stretched until it breaks. And in fact, it was, I have to give credit where it's due, it was Thundra again, who was talking about this idea where I think she used like a flame underneath, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's basically a string being stretched and stretched and stretched. And so depending on where you are, vibrationally speaking, if you are deep into your fear of love, then you're going to be, if it's down here like this, you're going to be down here. and there's a string, and there are going to be people all along different points of the string, but there's a point right there in the middle. And so there will be people on all parts of this bridge, if you want to look at it that way, that's being stretched, and at some point, the string breaks. And who's ever on this side of the string, if this is down, is going to go down. Who's ever on this side of the string is going to go up. And so that's why I came up with this idea here, because that sounds to me like, there might be a temporary solar wave wormhole. Because if I look at my awareness that's come to me, it came overnight. It was just out of nowhere. I mean, obviously I've been working on myself my whole life, so it wasn't that I wasn't conscious. I was a conscious person, living a spiritual life, seeking to be more conscious and aware, loving, self-loving, definitely into higher energy work and the whole idea of working with ancestors and spirit guides, and I was all into that. But I still believed basically in the narrative. I believed in the governmental system. I believed in the scientific narrative. I believed that we had actual, I was such an idiot looking back on it, but I believed that we had journalists and all of that, and we still had a media and a news media. I still believed all of that. That's because I'm old, because we actually did back in the 60s and 70s. It wasn't perfect, but it was a hell of a lot different than it is now. And it wasn't until September of 2021 where, because of things that I'm not going to talk about on YouTube, became apparent to me, the whole thing just cracked open, and I realized, oh my God, these people have been right the whole time. And then I have this experience a year ago where a mantis being, puts his finger on my crown chakra and, scares the crap out of me. And he didn't scare me, I scared myself. And then these beings start coming to me and telling me about being a probability and how quantum reality works, and how, the only thing that's preventing you from being where I am is that you, as a human, are grabbing onto probabilities and manifesting. You continue to manifest your 3D existence. If you wanted to, you could shift up immediately. I was told that numerous times, because I would ask, when is this solar flash going to come? And they'd say, it'll come when you decide it's going to come. I'm like, oh, gee, thanks a lot. But on a quantum level, it's true. And this is, we hear of, like Babaji, and we hear of, ancient Taoist mystics that, in the Maoshan tradition, the legends go that, when a Maoshan master is ready to ascend, what will happen is that he will do certain things and take certain herbs and blah, blah, blah. And then he will put himself in a coffin under the ground, and they'll bury him. He'll go into a state of whatever you call that, a deep meditative state where he'll, his heart will be pumping, but nothing else will be going on, and he'll die. And they'll come back and check on him. They'll dig him up and look at him, and they'll see his body is withered to nothing, and they'll see the heart. So he's still alive. So they go, oh, he's still not done. So they bury him back up again, and then they go back and open it up, and there's nobody there. And then he'll come walking in. He'll walk in through the wall, and hey guys, this is what these legends are about. Or in the Taoist tradition, where again we're talking about legends. Who know if they're true or not? Supposedly the Taoist masters will go into deep meditation, and they'll go into a cave somewhere where they'll just go into meditation, and they'll stay in that meditative state, samadhi state, for weeks or months. And they have apprentices who will come every day and brush off all of the the spiders and the bugs and the dust and all of that. And then one day they'll show up and the only thing that will be left will be a pile of hair, fingernails, and clothing. And the person will be gone. And the idea is that they've shifted up their vibration to the next level, which means they've moved into a higher dimension. And as I just said that, I just got a huge rush of energy. So they're telling me, yeah, that's exactly what happens. So we could do that now, I suppose, if we were brave enough. I suppose that's really all that it comes down to. But as it turns out, because there's so much destruction going on, and so many humans, that are choosing to create a destructive environment, the planet Earth has said, you know what, I love you guys, but I'm not going to do this with you. This is a healthy thing to do. You're in one of those dysfunctional relationships and you say, I love you, but I just can't be with you. So I'm going to leave. I hope you find some help, but I'm going to go for my own health. I need to be out of this relationship. So the Earth is saying that to us. She's saying, listen, I love you guys, but I'm not going to do this anymore with you. I have to take care of myself, and I have to take care of the people on here, who are willing to heal and to grow, and so I'm gonna move on. In my mind, the way that I see it, and I don't know if this is true, but this makes sense to me and it gives me comfort. And perhaps we can decide this is what happens. Maybe we can choose to decide this is how things happen. But in my mind, the way that I see it is that, first there's the kind of what's happening right now. I think we're in the beginning stages of this, where the Earth is starting to, shift into two different Earths. We're still intermingled with the lower 3D, so we can still walk around and see them and talk to them, but things are starting to shift and move. And then what will happen is what Thunder was talking about, where there will be like this string scenario where they'll still be connected, but the string is getting stretched further and further apart. And then I imagine that the string breaks and there will be a relief on the side of the higher dimensional Earth. And in my mind, I imagine, as I shared in the guided meditation that I just put up, that in the higher dimensions, where the higher dimensional beings are, they'll sort of see Earth sort of, manifest out of nowhere, meaning that it's shifted up into 5D. And I imagine that lower dimensional 3D that, falls back into who knows what happens, that becomes kind of like a shadow, non-real shadow world that just sort of crumbles and disappears. And when that happens, the souls that are on that, nothing bad, the souls that are on that leave, and they will go to places where they get to go and heal. They will find, the stories of the underworld in Norse tradition. There's lots of comfort and healing and people partying and having a good time, and it's not an evil place at all. They will go to places like that, and then they'll keep reincarnating on lower dimensional worlds until they're ready to move up. That's what's happening in my mind. I don't know if that's because that's what I'm being told. I'm getting a lot of energy, so maybe I am being told that. Or if it's just that's how I need to see it to tolerate it. Because I care. I care deeply for everybody on this planet. And I want everybody to ascend. And I don't wish anybody, no matter how horrible they are, I don't wish anybody any harm. I don't wish anybody any pain or any sadness. I don't have any anger towards anybody. I don't have any resentment. I mean, I've still got, stuff to work on, but I don't have any general resentment for anybody, no matter who they are. And I don't want anybody to hurt. I know what it's like to hurt, and I don't want anybody to be in pain. But just like, I've known people who have made choices to destroy their lives, and I've watched them do it, even though I've known and they've known they've had opportunities to do other things. They've done the easy thing, which is just, if you don't do anything, you will most likely revert to your lower vibrational nature. Living a spiritual life takes effort, takes discipline. It doesn't happen automatically. Not in this school. This is the risk. This is the risk that souls have taken to come here. I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of lives on this planet. And I know that there have been lives where I have sunk into really dark places and done really destructive things. And so I've been lucky enough in this life, for whatever reason, everything lined up so that I was willing to do the work. My entire life has been nothing but hard work. Nothing but hard work. I have worked my ass off to stay alive and to stay sane and to evolve and to be healthy. So, choosing to become human, there's a real risk involved, and anybody, who chooses to do that deserves a salute, even if they don't, evolve the way that they want. It's a big risk. Ultimately, everybody's going to achieve unity with the infinite. Ultimately, everybody will. Nobody's going to get discarded or lost. In any case, I'm wondering what this will be like. So, this isn't anything coming from the ETs, but it is my belief, and I'm willing to be wrong about this, but it is my belief that the solar wave ascension event is going to coincide with the solar maximum event we are currently just entering, which will last until 2025, 2026. So that might be somewhere between now and then, might be when the whole thing happens. And I say that, and a big part of me just goes, a big part of me has a really hard time believing this. Very hard time believing it. And it's frightening. And it's exhilarating. So I focus, I think what's really important for us to keep doing is to really stay in meditation. And in your meditations, to be focusing on things that really bring you joy. And I'm creating in my mind, in my meditations, I'm creating the house I'm going to live in. I know where I'm going to put it. I know where I'm going to live. It's going to be on Earth, but it's not going to be the same. There's not going to be as much buildings. There's not going to be a lot of the stuff that's there now. A lot of the buildings and stuff won't be there. It'll be more nature. But it's going to be the same place. I know exactly where it's going to be. And I know exactly what I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be doing a lot of surfing and other things like that. And a lot of meditating and sending power throughout the earth and connecting. I'm building that reality in my mind because I believe that's how this is done. What you focus on is where we're going to end up. And so when I do these meditations, I get a lot of energy. I get a huge amount of higher dimensional energy, which when I'm in the meditation feels blissful. But when I come out of it, maybe hours later, I might be tired or emotionally vulnerable or, anxious or things like that. And I just have to accept that's just like you go to the gym, the next day you wake up, you're sore. So I think that's kind of what's going on with that. There was something else I wanted to say. I can't remember what it is now. Anyway, I'm happy to take any questions. This is a question and answer. If you have a question, write the word question in all caps and then write your question in normal script. If you have a feeling, write the word feeling. Notice I'm not asking for you to write down an opinion, a statement. People do that. I mean, I don't know why, if I say write the word question, why that means it's okay for you to write the word opinion. And when did I say that? I wanted that. Statement, thought. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for your questions and your feelings. That's what's most important for you to shift and stay vulnerable. That's why I focus on that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the questions here. Agent of the Universe question. I have a bunch of uncomfortable, intense feelings bubble up as you're talking about being fear of being loved. I feel a dark hole, emptiness in my heart. Do you think I'll make it to the new earth? Yeah. I mean, if I have the same feeling as you, and I don't know why these beings would choose me to write books and tell people about this if they're planning on leaving me behind. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So it's not about having uncomfortable feelings. It's about the decisions that you make. If you decide to act in love, if you decide to act with consciousness, if you decide to act with compassion towards yourself and towards other people, that's it. It's the only thing you're required to do. Stop judging yourself for your feelings. I understand it's uncomfortable and you want them to go away. We all do. But there's nothing wrong with having a feeling. It's the actions that you take based on the feeling is what's going to determine it. So just make the decision to be loving to yourself and loving to others. Just follow my directions. And keep talking about your feelings with your therapist. I'm assuming you have one. With your teachers. Everybody, you should have somebody that you talk to. You should have a mentor. You should have a mentor, or a therapist, or a guru, or a teacher, or a group of people. Stop being isolated and think you can do it yourself. You can't. Reach out and make some connections and share your feelings with people, like-minded people who can love you and accept you where you are. Let's see what else. Gebo the Shaman, honest feeling. I have a severe aversion to the 5D new ascended earth. I'm fearful of change and the loss of my earthly attachments. I feel like my identity and comfort is threatened by the shift. You and me, both, my friend. All right, so by the way, people on here, when somebody shares a feeling, you don't need to jump in there and fix them. That's called codependence. It also devalues people. So if somebody says, I have this feeling, and you jump in and you say, you don't have to feel that way, or, if you do this, it'll go away, you're actually devaluing them because you're uncomfortable with those feelings. So if you're on here doing that, you find yourself, if you're new to this channel and you're typing into what somebody's sharing a feeling and you're trying to fix them, don't. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes to be talked out of their feelings. Let them have their feelings. If they ask for your help, then give it. But this is called unsolicited advice and it's destructive. Hey, you know what you need? Don't be sad. Unless somebody's asked you for help, it's only hurtful to them. Let's see what else. Thundra says, isn't spaghettification what happens if you were to enter a black hole? That's a good... That makes sense. Max's comment, if you're going to write a question, you see up there and below you, people are writing the word question so that I see it. Because if I don't see that, I tend to pass by it. So you didn't know that. You're probably new to the channel. So write the word question so that I can see it. You say, so there's going to be two earths. That's not a question. So there's something to the old heaven and earth making way for new heaven and new earth. So that's not a question. You're sharing us your thought process and you're wanting me to co-sign that. So I'm not here to co-sign your thought process. If you have a question because you don't know, I'll answer it. But you're kind of sharing your thought process and your opinion, and that's not really a question. Thundra Gucharan question, could you talk more about the Big Bang Theory being revamped and the stars missing? Okay, that is something that I have wanted to talk about. I don't know all of this. I just know that recent things I'm seeing are popping up that are saying that The Big Bang Theory can't be true. And what they're saying is that as they're looking deeper and deeper into the past, which means farther and farther, to the first light of the universe, that they're finding that there are structures, meaning like galaxies and things like that couldn't exist based on our understanding. In other words, you go back a certain way and you say, okay, this is when the universe is X amount of billions of years old, and at this time the only thing that is possible is these certain gases and things like that, and you find fully formed galaxies. It's like that, it's not supposed to be there. So it means that the universe isn't, the Big Bang, unless there's some other explanation, the Big Bang can't be correct. And some people are saying something to the effect of that what they're seeing is vestiges of a universe that came before this one. So it's like you're seeing beyond the edge of the universe to another universe, that kind of stuff. So that's throwing everything into, all kinds of things. But I'm hearing things about there being black holes, that we live in a black hole, that our three-dimensional universe is in fact inside of a black hole, which will explain a lot. I wanted to talk about that because, the way that higher dimensional beings communicate is, they communicate through signs. In other words, they don't beam down in 3D and sit down and have tea with you and explain to you how things work. At least they don't do that with me. Which is another reason why the aliens that abduct are not extraterrestrials. They're 3D Earth beings. If they can walk into your house and pick you up and drag you out, it means that they're a three-dimensional being, which means they're not ETs. So ETs don't do that. They don't, to my knowledge, they don't. Maybe they have. I haven't seen it. I don't know that I could handle it. I think it would scare the crap out of me. I could be wrong. I think the intensity of that experience, just the intensity of their vibration, would be more than I could tolerate in my current state. I don't know. But, they manifest in orbs of light. They manifest in orbs of light that shift and change. If they do manifest, like in CE5, the movie, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, if you watch it, the ships that manifest sort of just come, you'll see like this light outline of a ship sort of come into view and then disappear. They'll be half in and half out. They never fully manifest. And the planets themselves are higher dimensional beings, and the way you know that is they're orbs. The stars themselves are white holes. They are portals to higher dimensions. Physics tells us that all of the light in our world comes from the fifth dimension. And where do lights come from? They come from stars. All of the planets are orbs. And all of the planets, as you know, are chakras. Chakras are the planets. So all of the planets in our solar system are here specifically to be the mirror of inside of you, and these are higher dimensional beings who are manifesting in our 3D world as an orb. Who knows what they are in higher dimensions, but that's what higher dimensional objects in the third dimension look like. So that goes along with the idea that we live in a black hole. Now, if we live in a black hole and these beings are not in a black hole, they're somewhere else in some other place, they can't just talk to us. They have to communicate to us through signs. Like as I'm sleeping and I wake up and I hear a piano playing. That's the best way that they can tell me in one, sound, yes, that's exactly right, vibrational strings, blah, blah, blah. They're confirming to me something that they'll know that I'll hear that and I'll know how to interpret it. That's why direct communication is so challenging, for me anyway. When I communicate with them telepathically, it takes a lot of work to try and to let your brain form the words and the sentences, because as my brain is forming the words and sentences, it feels like I'm talking to myself. So it becomes very confusing. So it takes a real meditative light touch to let yourself sort of have a fantasy, and at the same time, let that fantasy go somewhere. I didn't think that. There's no way I could have thought that. That's never entered my mind ever before. Those are really kind of the only two ways that I know of that they can communicate. Either they're going to, communicate through a sign in a dream, or they're going to try their best to communicate to you telepathically. But you have to be willing to create that wormhole that they can communicate with. That's why you can have two people. One person will be getting information and the one next to them will be saying nothing's happening. That's why some of you do CE5 and you say nothing happens. I guarantee you something happens. I guarantee you every single one of you, if you do a CE5 or an interdimensional meditation, I guarantee you they see you and they respond to you. I'm so frustrated with the CE5 Facebook groups. I'm so frustrated with them because they've got the word CE5 and yet they'll write things about, alien abductions and, they spend all day looking in the clouds for UFOs and they're like, do you guys not know what CE5 is? Do you not understand that you can make a connection? Why don't you, instead of watching all those stupid History Channel, ancient alien New Age nonsense, why don't you just simply learn how to communicate with them yourself? That's how I feel. And people will write things on those CE5 message boards and say, I've been doing CE5, but nothing happens. I did feel a powerful, loving presence, but I didn't see anything. I'm like, what do you mean nothing happened? So their communications are hitting you. The question is whether or not you're letting them in. And I understand, because you think you're talking to yourself and you don't want to do that. So you gaslight yourself out of it. I get it. Some of you have just powerful feelings of love. Some of you need to see some orb flying around in the sky. But even then, the first 2 times I did it, I recorded orbs flying around me, but I didn't see anything. So this is the thing, man. You have to be willing to, let your guard down. Let your armor down, which is the fear of being loved and seen on a very deep psychological level. This is why everybody should be with some kind of counselor and some kind of therapy, with some kind of group. This is why you should be doing that. Because you should be working overtime. Your main focus should be working on how to work through your trauma, your pain, and bring down your defenses. I know it goes against everything that you think you're supposed to be doing. But that's the people who are more open to being loved, who drop the fear, those people are gonna, those are gonna be the people who go through the wormhole. The people who run away and hide within their self-created armor of fear and insecurity and self-hatred, they're going to end up in the lower one. That's how it works. So did I answer some of the things you wanted me to talk about, Sandra? Erdwick, honest feeling. I had experiences, but I struggle with my inner coldness. I don't know what that means. I believe in love from God and the higher ones, but I find it hard to believe in love from others. So, Erdwick, I don't know you, but just based on that, you need therapy. I don't know what you went through as a kid, but you've got normal human stuff. Your parents didn't love you in the right way. There's some trauma there. So, the thing is, saying I believe in love from God, that's a very convenient sort of intellectual thing to say, but it doesn't mean anything. Because God is in people. If you want to see God, look at somebody. And even the New Testament says that. The New Testament says, how can you say you love God but hate your brother? Well, how can you say you believe in the love of God but you don't trust humans? It's okay that you don't, but you've got some work to do. So get yourself into some therapy. Well, it's just not that hard. Go find a therapist and say, I want to work on my mistrust issues. I was hurt as a kid and I didn't trust, and I never got the love. Just do it. It's not that hard. Just do it. And learn how to love others, and you will, in the process of that, learn how to love yourself. The inability to love others means you can't love yourself. And if you can't love yourself, you can't love others, period. So that's my suggestion to you, and I appreciate you sharing the feeling, and you didn't ask for my opinion, but I gave it to you anyway, so there you go. Sophia Palumbo, question. How does it work when using imagination to create your world reality versus the collective? You've just said it. You've just defined it. The collective unity 5D Earth. Look, don't worry about that. Don't worry about other people. The thing is that love is love. It's not like two people get together and if they really love each other, one guy's punching the other person in the face and the other person says, no, I want you to kiss me. He says, no, I don't. I want you to punch me. Although there are people that do that. There's a common understanding. So if you do something that is loving for yourself in your fantasy, guess what? It's going to be in line with somebody else's fantasy that's also in line with that vibration of love. It's not like you're going to create your own version of love and they're going to create their version and you'll never get together. So this shows same kind of thing as Erdwick on a much, much different vibration, but it's the same thing. It means you feel isolated. It means you feel different. It means you feel like, you don't belong and you're trying to figure out what other people are thinking. I can see that in your question. If I can have this new fantasy like other people are thinking, then I'll be part of their 5D and then I won't be alone. Instead of, I am the universe. God, if you want to call it, is inside of me. Therefore, if I tap into the love within myself, I'll be tapping into the love that other people have, what you're calling the collective unity 5D Earth. This is why, in my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, which everybody should read. Let me write it down for you. Listen to me read it or go buy it. Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Go watch that video on my channel. Go read the book. You learn that if you do what your soul wants you to do, you will be in alignment with positivity and everybody else. Even if you do something that other people don't like. If you end up, your parents wanted you to be a dressmaker and you wanted to go be a ballerina, and they hate you because you won't follow in their footsteps, you're helping them by following your truth, even if they hate you for it. So it's not about agreeing with everybody or getting everybody to like you and being on their, in their mindset. It's about doing what your soul tells you to do. And you'll find out that once you do that, other people are going to be in alignment with you. You don't have to worry about it. What else? Paul Kupari, question. My mom passed 326 and saw there was a planetary alignment that did have something to do with it, as she had an internal. That's not a question. You're just giving me an interesting anecdote. I don't know what your question is. Erdwick, listen. Here's how this works. Welcome to my channel. I'm not asking for you to defend yourself. Sometimes I'm wrong, but in your case, I'm not wrong. So what you just did is you just redug yourself back into your safety state by trying to clarify or argue with me what was going on. I'm telling you something, you can take it and meditate on it or not. You say, I struggle with apathy. This is a bullshit thing you're telling yourself. That's not what you said earlier. You want me to read what you said earlier? I struggle with my inner coldness. What is the opposite of heat? Cold. What is the opposite of love? Love is warmth. You say, I believe in love from God and the higher ones, but I find it hard to believe in love from others. So stop bullshitting me. You're taking the emotionality out of it so you don't sound bad to yourself. And you want, when I tell you, you have some trauma. You have to learn how to love yourself and love others, because you can't love yourself and not love other people. And that goes with trusting other people. If you can't do that and you're cold, you're isolated, and you can't feel the negative feelings behind that, that is bad. That is a bad sign. It means that you are in an unconscious state of your own emotional awareness. And I'm telling you, this is my channel, I'm the teacher, you can accept it or reject it. I'm telling you that means that you're in pain, that you have walled yourself in, and that there's some trauma there that needs to be dealt with. Coming back on here and trying to, correct it and take all of the emotion out of it, like, I'm not angry or negative, I'm just sort of nowhere, which is bullshit. I'm giving you permission to feel your pain, even if you haven't given yourself permission yet. And you're not going to know until you get up off your rear end, go see a therapist, and start working through that pain. That's my suggestion to you. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to change my feeling. Don't try and talk me into seeing it a different way. I care about you enough to tell you the truth, whether you like it or not. If I'm wrong, big deal. But if you're not working on yourself, and if you're not thawing that coldness, because when you thaw that coldness, a lot of pain and a lot of anger is going to come out. But it's understandable. You don't want to feel it. So you've just frozen it off, and you're telling yourself, oh, I don't have any negativity. I'm just sort of apathetic. So take what I say, like it or not, but don't try and talk me out of what I just saw. I know what I saw. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I come off too quickly and I don't listen to people, but not in your case. Let's see. Erdwick says, I always experienced love from deities and the types of beings you described a lot since childhood, though. Good, but you can't transfer that over to people. That's called narcissistic delusion. I'm not saying you didn't have an actual experience, but you're not accepting what I'm telling you. You can't love yourself and not have love for others. You can't have it. If you're not feeling love towards others, there's something that needs to be dealt with. So I'm being harsh with you because I'm trying to crack you out of your denial. All right. Sophia Palumbo, question. Do you imagine resurrection occurring that pass away before the shift? You're talking, do I envision people who have died resurrecting from the dead? No, I don't see that. That's a Christian thing. That's the Christian, whatever you call that, the rapture. And that's not what's happening. This isn't the rapture. What's interesting about the rapture is that the rapture is not biblical. There's nothing in the Bible that mentions it. There's a couple of verses, that are taken out of context or seem to be written sort of out of context that talk about something like that. But there's really nothing in the Bible that talks about it. But it's such a major belief in Christianity. What I find interesting is that people, even if they're in what I believe to be the wrong religion, thankfully the beings of light don't judge people for being mistaken, thank the gods, because if they did, I'd be screwed because I make mistakes all the time. but people were still intuiting what we're now, perhaps, because time will tell, experiencing what we call what I'm calling the solar wave event, or the 5D shift. But no, I don't think people are going to be raised from the dead. But you will be able to communicate with people who have passed. You can do it now if you want. I've interacted with all the people who've passed away through my ET friends. Showed up with them, said, your mom wants to talk to you, your dad wants to talk to you, your sister wants to talk to you, your fiance wants to talk to you. So you can do that now. There's no need for people to rise from the dead. But, new people will be born. So the people who have died, they don't have to be resurrected. They'll be born. I mean, we'll still be making babies, and people will still be incarnating, and souls will be incarnating in this new earth. So those people who have died, or if they haven't reincarnated, they will want to reincarnate, especially if they miss you. What else? Nothing else? No more questions? We done? Okay, I guess we're done for the time being. That's all I have, my friends. I wish you all the best. And again, this channel, those of you, let me just once again address those of you who are just watching my channel and you're not doing anything else. This is where you get stuck. Forgive me for saying so, Erdwick, you're stuck in your head. This is where you get stuck in your head. If all you do is listen to talk and you don't do anything. So specifically what I am suggesting that people do is energy work and meditation. This is really the thing that allows you to evolve. Because without it, it's just virtually impossible to evolve. I recommend everybody who has any experience with any kind of 12-step issue, I recommend everybody go back to those 12-step meetings and work those steps. The fastest way, I just got a hit, the fastest way to open yourself up for self-honesty and healing in this world, there's nothing more powerful than the 12 steps. Nothing. That's why they did the impossible. When it first came out, it was literally impossible to get alcoholics to get sober. That's why they used to lock, I don't know if you know that, 80, 90, 100 years ago, they'd lock you up. If you were an alcoholic, they would literally put you in a straitjacket and lock you up for the rest of your life. That's how serious it was. And along came the 12 steps, and now people have a way to do the impossible. And then it's branched out into alcoholism, drug addiction, gambling, sex addiction, codependence. It's branched out. It's because it works. And I have a friend of mine who's a devout Tibetan Buddhist who says the 12 steps is the most practical way of living the Buddhist spiritual path. You actually physically achieve what Buddhism is trying to teach. So I recommend that to everybody. It's time for people to get up off their ass, stop trying to do everything themselves. It's time that people start looking at themselves. You've got to be honest and look at your fears. You've got to be willing to drop all of the things that keep you trapped in your head. It's time to stop smoking weed if you're smoking weed. It's time to stop drinking alcohol. Get rid of the caffeine and the nicotine if you can. You don't have to be perfect, but at least go in the direction. It's time to stop doing hard drugs. It's time to stop doing all of the things you do to avoid your feelings. It's time to stop. You're going to have to face all your painful feelings. There's no way around it. And so that's why I think therapy is really good, specifically psychology, not so much psychiatry. Psychology, 12-step work, but any kind of group of people getting together, meditating, people coming together for whatever reason, coming together and meditating and working together and sharing your thoughts and your life with others. It's time to stop isolating. It's time to stop. There's going to be no shortage of people in the lower 3D who are isolating and stuck in their heads in their own gurus. Okay? So I know that's difficult for some people to hear, but You got nothing to lose. There's nothing I'm telling you to do that won't end up helping you, even if I'm wrong. Even if I'm wrong, there's nothing I'm saying that won't help you. So why not do the thing that helps you? Why not do that? Let's see. Paul Kupari says, honest feeling, Mike, I'm thankful right now. Make some interesting astrological things, which are probably Western astrology, which I'm not a Western astrologer. So unfortunately, if that is Western astrology, you're off by 24 degrees. Sorry. But maybe what you're saying is right. I'm also looking at Pluto and Uranus and Neptune in Vedic astrology, and I'm finding that interesting. So thanks for sharing that. Honest feeling again, he says, Mike, I think you're a spiritual big brother. Okay. Well, that's not a feeling. Bear in mind, having a strong feeling about an opinion is not the same as having a strong feeling. So you have an opinion that I am your spiritual big brother, and you have a strong feeling about that. But the feeling is, I'm happy, I'm sad, I love you, I hate you. Those are feelings. So next time, work the feeling in there. Like you did in the other one. I'm thankful right now. All right, that's it. Sorry for nitpicking everybody. If I've done or said anything that's hurt anybody's feelings or has offended you, please know, like you, I'm doing my best. My desire and my motivation comes only from a desire to help you in any way that I can. It's the only reason I'm here. And now I finally know why I've been put on this planet, and it's been to give you these tools. So please use them. Use the free tools. If you want the high level stuff, and you want to support, keep my lights on, you can subscribe. Get the books, Interdimensional Revolution, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. Get the books and read them. And I look forward to, seeing you all when I see you. All right, that's it, my friends. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.